There's maybe not as many leaders. There's lots of oxygen consumers. There's not as many oxygen suppliers. I kind of did a lot of the PowerPoints and meeting prep and different things for the president of sales. And at the time, I would say I probably dismissed that role.
If you have to hit one bias, what that would be?
I think that's a bias that exists across any of the companies in any industries, is that people think that a certain years of experience applies to a certain value. And
I had a similar experience. I was told you are not old enough to have this kind of role.
I think that's the only way you can really grow. Made way more mistakes. I always get the question of like, hey, what's the biggest mistake you've made? And I mean, there's hundreds of them or thousands of them. There's 100,000 people that depend on not me directly, but us to lead this business successfully. That's a big responsibility that I certainly take serious and always proud, never arrogant is what Morton, our CEO, says. And I love that saying.
This is the Oil and Gas Breaking Bias show, where we are going to invite industry leaders to talk about their journeys and also technologies of tomorrow in an effort to break some of the biases that might have formed around this energy industry. Hello, everyone. I hope you're happy and healthy. I'm Anand Jha, and you are listening to the Oil and Gas Breaking Bias show. Today, I'm very happy and excited because we will be joined by a true leader with dynamic journey, Brendan Spencer, President of Motion Business at ABB. Brendan's journey from sales rep to the top of one of the leading technology companies is true testament of his hard work, humility, and vision. His journey is not just about rising to the top, but it's about staying true to your values, embracing change, and also inspire others to rise with you. So with that, let's deep dive into his journey and also the mindset to break bias and lead from the heart in this ever-evolving world around us. Brendan, it's an honor to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. A pleasure to be here and certainly look forward to the conversation.
Definitely. And here we have opportunity to learn from you and to get inspired and do better, to do better in our career and business.
A lot of pressure, but let's see. I hope so.
No. I know you have achieved a lot, and that's we are going to talk about. So I don't want to waste any other minute. Can you please talk about your journey? You have a long career from sales to now leading a global organization. What are the key moments or decisions that defined your journey? And also talk about some of the biases and stereotypes that you might have came across.
Yeah, sure. I'm not an engineer, so I play one in real life, I guess, but I'm not an engineer by education. I went to Virginia Tech, grew up in Virginia, and went to Virginia Tech undergrads in economics, so I have a business degree. After that, I had an opportunity to get into inside sales at Siemens. So I moved to Florida, went to Siemens, inside sales, so kind of quoting, tracking deliveries, all those kind of tactical things. I would say is basically what I was doing, trying to help salespeople be successful. Moved into kind of a strategic marketing role, and one of the main roles that I had at Siemens before I left there was I kind of did a lot of the PowerPoints and meeting prep and different things for the president of sales. And at the time, I would say I probably dismissed that role a bit and thought that, I had more potential than that, or I should be doing something higher value or these sort of things. And when you reflect on it now, it's probably one of the more valuable roles that I had in my career, because I learned how to be around executives, what they thought, how they wanted to see information, how they communicated things to customers, to suppliers, to their teams. And so for me, that was really valuable. And so then I made the decision to leave Siemens. I had an opportunity to take a different role. It didn't work out. And, at that time, there was a little bit of a ceiling, I would say, depending upon how young you were or how much experience you had or those sort of things. And so I think that's a bias that exists across any of the companies in any industries, is that people think that a certain years of experience applies to a certain value.
I had a similar experience. I was told you are not old enough to have this kind of role.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that wasn't going to work for me. So my ambition and kind of what I thought I could contribute to a company was maybe bigger than they were willing to put out there at the time. And so I had some friends and family at ABB Came out to Houston, interviewed, and next thing you know, I'm in a U-Haul driving down I-10 heading to Houston. I moved here thinking I would be here for 3 years, and then ABB would move me somewhere else, and I'll be 19 years in Houston. Both my kids born here. It was certainly home for me, and then progressed through sales roles, individual contributor roles, global sales jobs. And then I had another pivot to make, which was, do I stay in a commercial role or do I go into a general management role?
Mhm.
And so I decided to go into general management, had a lot of great support around me, leaders that mentored me, all sorts of things. And so ran the US, ran North America, had an opportunity to lead one of the divisions, which was process industries. So metals, mining, pulp and paper, cement. Went from there to energy, which is the biggest division in our process automation business area and the global energy business. And then was fortunate to be selected in August of last year to join the executive committee of ABB and step into leading the motion business area, which has been a whole nother set of experiences and learnings and challenges across the last 8 months. So it's been a ride, I would say, across the last 19 years at ABB.
Definitely, I could see you have broke many biases. The first thing you said, you are not an engineer, but leading one of the top technology companies in the world. And then you just also talked about the age bias.
Yeah, sure.
So it goes both ways. Sometimes we say like you're too young, you're too old, like instead of looking into the capabilities of that individual.
Yeah, I think you have to look at the person. I always talk about when we're looking at talent, I always ask the question of do they have the runway? So
Yes,
can they get to where we need them to be and can we help them get to where they need to be? And so, some leaders stand in front of you and pull you, others stand behind you, push you, but also catch you if you fall. And
definitely.
so I'm much more around that kind of school of leadership. And for me, servant leadership is everything. It's all about the people around you. It's about the teams that are doing the work. It's about shining the spotlight around them and giving the organization oxygen. So anybody that's worked for me ever has probably heard me talk about giving oxygen. There's lots of managers in the corporate world. There's maybe not as many leaders.
Yes, you're right.
There's lots of oxygen consumers. There's not as many oxygen suppliers. And
Yes.
my view is you got to give people oxygen.
And definitely. And you talk about the leadership. Sometimes people say, I'm a leader, but when there's a high stake environments, they immediately go into the shell in that manager mode and then forgets about everything. And the timeline is more important than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's times for that. I mean, COVID was an example, or material shortages, or different things that happen. There's certainly times to be a manager, tactical, get
Yes.
in the trenches and deal with things, et cetera. But more times than not, it's about providing that environment, providing that direction, and kind of the space for the team to operate. I mean, as long as everybody has a very clear definition of what success looks like and how we're measuring it, you can then empower people and hold them accountable.
Makes sense. And also, you talk about you have changed multiple roles, like during this journey. How was it like to making yourself uncomfortable? Because yes, everybody wants to do something, but there is always a bias inside you. Like, will be successful in that role because I'm already successful in this role? Have you came through have you came through that thought in your journey?
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage everyone to get comfortable being uncomfortable. I think that's the only way you can really grow. Made way more mistakes. People, I speak to younger groups of people all the time, so young talents and people on rotations and ABB and these sort of things. And inevitably, I always get the question of like, "Hey, what's the biggest mistake you've made?" And I mean, there's hundreds of them or thousands of them. There's not. It's almost impossible to answer that question.
Yes, right.
I mean, that's how you learn, that's how you grow, so you gotta be uncomfortable and willing to do that, and I think, when probably the biggest challenge for me or biggest mistake I made was when I went from being an individual contributor, which I've been all my life, you can kinda be a doer, you can
Yes.
take a lot of the load on yourself. When I went to leading a team of people, you can't do that, and I did it. I micromanaged everything, I was in
Yes.
everyone's details, I was working all the time and all this stuff, and I was drowning the organization.
And because you look for perfection,
Yeah.
because yeah, that's what happens. Yes.
Yeah, it's really you take all the power away from people, you take all the entrepreneurial spirits away from people, Yeah, it was bad. So yeah, to those that I managed first, I apologize for how that went.
And that's why we talk about humility. Like that's people talk about you. Like connecting with the people, and also is, I think, understanding the mistakes can happen with from anyone. Nobody is that perfect, and then you learn from those mistakes.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's extremely, I take it never for granted that I have the opportunity to serve in motion now 23,000 people. I
Mhm.
don't only look at it as those 23,000 people, but a lot of people have a partner, a wife, a husband, whatever. They have kids or others that depend on them. So, there's 100,000 people that depend on not me directly, but
Yes.
us to lead this business successfully, to make the right decisions, to make it successful. And that's a big responsibility that I certainly take serious, and always proud, never arrogant is what Morton, our CEO, says. And I love that saying. I think it's really, really important.
And I also come from Siemens, so now I work for ABB. But one culture what I have seen in ABB and which I really like, where leaders are connected on the grounded level, like they're more grounded, they're more accessible, and that also helps people to get inspired.
Yeah, I don't know what their structure looks like now over there, and
Yeah.
better not speak on them, but to speak on us. And I think for ABB, we try and be as flat as possible. We're not big on hierarchy. We don't run around the world showing org charts and these sort of things. We were talking about something in one of the forums that I'm in, and we were talking about, like, well, who's a leader? Everyone's a leader.
Yes.
End of story. Doesn't matter if you have people reporting to you or not. Doesn't matter what your title is. Everyone needs to be a leader in their own space and in their own way. And I love that about ABB. I think we provide an environment for that to happen.
I can fully agree because I have seen how our organization works. So that's bring us to our next question, because you also served as this industry, this energy industry, chemical, oil and gas, very closely in your sales role, in your account management role, and also led energy business, one of the big business for ABB. How was your experience doing that, and also how do you see this industry is transitioning towards?
I mean, I love the energy business. I mean, it's kind of given my life to it, I would say. Traveled all over the world. I mean, it's taken me from Indonesia to the Arctic Circle, and kind of everywhere in between. And so I love this business. It's critical for everything that we do in every aspect of our life. The clothes that we wear, the medications that we take, the ways we get around the world, everything. And if you want to take energy for granted, live here in Houston and go through a hurricane where you lose it for 3 days, 5 days, whatever it is, and then imagine the 2 billion people around the world that hardly have access to it, and think about what the importance of energy is in your world. And so people think about just electricity. It's obviously a lot more than that. And so I've had the pleasure of being from the front end of exploration and finding it, and how does ABB play a role in that, all the way through, getting it out of the ground and then converting it and turning it into something that we use every day. And so to see it from end to end, I think one of the things you talked about in your opening, and kind of when we were talking about doing this, was some of the bias that exists. And people think energy, they think just oil and gas, and then they think emissions, and we got to get rid of all of it.
Yes.
And I mean, there's just so much education that needs to happen in terms of what the true energy landscape looks like, the dependence that we have on it, and how much more the world needs of it, energy, that I think these kind of discussions, and really when we travel around the world, that's what we're trying to do. But so I've loved it. I've been in it for 24 years now, I guess, since I finished school. And I'll be in it until I hang it up.
No, makes sense. And you talk about the transition. So, what are the challenges and opportunity do you see this energy industry? Because most of the time, when you think about industry, we always talk about the carbon, correct? Like immediately we jump into some negative aspect of this industry. But there much is happening, like innovation is happening. AI, people are using it. Like in Sarah, Victor talked about very new things, and those were not discussed before. So, what opportunity challenges this industry offers today if somebody wants to come and join this industry, or maybe they're already part of this industry, they're looking for some other opportunities?
I think the first thing to wrap our heads around is that we're in a state of energy expansion. So the world needs more energy to power what we're doing. I mean, the AI piece gets a lot of attention and data centers in these, but that's still a relatively small portion. It's still much more towards industrial power generation, all these sort of things. And so the world needs more energy. There's still a lot of people below the energy poverty line that don't have access to clean energy or to any energy, and kind of what they always talk about, the global south, that's an opportunity for us. So I think we first have to wrap our heads around energy expansion. Then we have to say, how do we get those net additions with lower emissions? And that's something that we're focused on at ABB every day. How do you do it consuming less energy? How do you clean it up? How do you capture carbon and do something with it? So all of these things are really opportunities for us to produce more with a smaller footprint. We should chase progress, not perfection. And
Yes.
really, that's what we're focused on at ABB. Let's have it. Let's make a dent. Let's have an impact everywhere in the world. We don't pick winners and losers in terms of the technology, whether it's nuclear, whether it's wind, whether it's solar, whether it's carbon capture, whether it's gas fired, whatever it is. Different countries are in different states of maturity, and ABB can help every single one of those customers get more while consuming less. And what a purpose to have. So you said people that want to come to this industry. My challenge to any younger generation that's listening to this and has a negative feeling about the energy business, pull up a seat at the table, have an
Yes.
impact. So it's very easy to stand outside with a sign and protest.
Easy
Uh,
to complain. Easy to complain.
it's less easy to pull up a chair
Like,
and solve some of the hardest problems in the world, which is what we're doing.
definitely. And a few things you already mentioned about. It's not about the goal, it's about the incremental progress that we are going to make. Because every time you say like this way or that way, but there is no this or that. Like there is always something in between. Like we have to understand. And the money this industry generates will be used towards energy transition to bring new technologies. So that's how I see. And also you talk about coming to this industry. One thing we come again and again, like every 10 years we say like this industry is dead, like now look for something else. But you are serving this industry much longer than me, and you have seen, we hear about these things, but this industry is not going to die.
Oh, look, I mean, the world needs energy.
Yes.
Energy growth, even exceeds GDP growth. And so as economies mature, as, for people that don't have access to clean power or to energy, electricity, the first thing they do when they get electricity is what? A refrigerator, something to keep food for them and their families and
Definitely.
everything else in good shape. Then it's air conditioning or
Yes.
heating or whatever it is. And I mean, I think we would all say that people are entitled to those things.
Yes.
That's kind of a basic need, and so they have the opportunity to do that with increased energy. So, everybody wants a transition to happen overnight, and
Yes.
again, I think that's on us in the industry to do a better job educating. Many of the previous transitions, if you go from biomass to coal, coal to oil, oil now to natural gas, all of those transitions are getting more energy density for cheaper.
Yes, you're right.
This energy transition is not so much that. This is, it might not be more energy density. It might be more expensive at first, but you can see what's happened with solar, what's happened with wind. The cost curves have come down. I drive an EV. I have an electric car, and I love it. Quite honestly, I spend $30 to $40 a month on electricity. That's my fixed cost for that car.
It's next to
Uh,
impossible.
and it's fantastic. Like,
Yes, you're right.
I always say it's an and equation, not an or equation. It's all the above. It's
Yeah,
not
all of the above,
not turn off
definitely.
oil and gas tomorrow because it's impossible.
Because
And so I think we have to do a better job educating.
And I definitely, and you also already mentioned about ABB technologies, that can help into this transition. Because as we said, we don't pick winners. We want to be part of this incremental journey that industry is going towards.
Yeah, I mean, I met with a customer this week in Houston who's geothermal, base load power, and ABB has a lot of great offerings to help them do it even more efficiently, package a solution together and deliver a great thing for them. And that's, clean energy. At the same time, we'll do something, for an oil and gas customer. So it's all the above, but we just have to chase progress.
Definitely, and I think the progress will continue for many years to come. So the message is here: this industry is not going anywhere. So
No.
be part of this industry and learn from it and grow with it.
That's right. I mean, you've done it yourself, and a lot of people watching the video, you can have an amazing career doing something that is purpose driven.
Mm.
You can see the world.
Yes.
I was telling a younger group of people earlier that I think I'm on my fifth passport, and that's after adding pages all the time because you run through so many stamps going all over the world. And I mean, what
Definitely.
other industry can you do that in?
Definitely. And I have seen, as you said, like in my role, I came across and explored so many new things that I didn't know about it, like when you go out, you see there's lot to offer. So with that, we can continue this discussion about this industry, but coming back to your journey, you have went through many transition, but if you're given a chance to relive your journey, what changes you might make?
I think I've been really fortunate to have some great support structure around me in the journey, in the corporate journey, whether it was at Siemens or at ABB, people that I'm still associated with now that have kind of mentored me and sponsored me and challenged me. So pointed out things that I've done. If I look back on the journey, there's certain decisions that I would have taken much faster. There's other decisions that I probably would have slowed down on and been a little bit more considerate or a little bit longer forward looking. And so, I'd be impossible to pinpoint one thing across the last 25 years, 24 years, but I think, the speed at which you do things, I always tell my team, you kind of got to drive with your feet on the gas and the brake because you can't just always be all gas all the time. And at different points in my career, I wanted to achieve things faster than you probably could, or I pushed the organization too hard and these kind of things. And I would have been better served balancing gas and brake, which hopefully I'm a little bit better at that now.
Makes sense. And I think that also comes with experience over the time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said earlier, I've made hundreds or thousands of mistakes and then you learn from those things. And so how can I get more? And I mean, I think as you step into more senior roles of leadership, right now I lead a team of 7 division presidents. Those are the guys that are doing the heavy lifting with their teams. They're the ones that run the business. And so how do I help facilitate that? How do I challenge them appropriately? How can we get a couple extra percent or gearing out of the organization, and create a culture that allows that to happen? And those are the little things that can differentiate us with our customers against our competitors and ultimately to give a great result or return to our shareholders. So those are, some of the things that I focus on now.
Makes sense. So in one of the podcast episode, we talk about what if scenarios, like especially when you start to grow in your career professionally and also professionally and personally, like when you want to grow and grow more, there's always a risk, like what you're going to gain, what you're going to lose. Do you also go through same what if scenarios, evaluating different option, or you take decision, trust your guts and move on?
I mean, I'm big on trusting my gut. I mean, I would say that I do a lot of pulsing of the team. So what do people think? What's their view? What's their opinion? Whatever. But then at some point you got to make a decision.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, if it's something feel really strong about, I'll probably talk to a couple people and then make a decision. If it's something that I'm not certain about or don't have experience with, I'll be a little wider. I might go to our CEO. I might go to one of my peers on the EC and say, "Hey, have you had something like this?" I mean, that's where you have to have humility because other people have more experience. Other people have different experience, and you'd be crazy to not use that. I said in one of our board meetings, I said to one of my colleagues after the board meeting, being in this room is like I have an MBA that I got probably 4 or 5 years after I was in the workforce from Rollins College and in Florida. And I said after that board meeting, being in this room for the last day or two is like getting another executive MBA. I mean, the the
So
wealth
much
of
knowledge.
knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
wealth
So
of
much knowledge,
knowledge
so
and
much discussion.
experience that's
Yeah.
sitting around the table.
Yes.
I just want to be a sponge in that environment.
Definitely. And sometimes we underestimate ourselves. We hesitate to reach out to somebody for help, support, or some I will say like some guidance. But what I have seen most of the time, in also in my career, when you reach out to somebody, most time it's a positive response. Like because the people who have already done so much in their career, in their life, they have nothing to hide.
Yeah. I mean, I think in ABB's culture, everybody wants to help. I mean, we play the ultimate team sport. So,
Yes.
we want to help and get things done. So, I think it's really important that you help those around you and you serve others.
So that brings us to the very interesting part of this whole discussion, rapid fire round. Brandon, are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm as ready as I'm going to be.
Let's see. Let's see. So, one word your team would use to describe your leadership style.
Oxygen.
Oxygen. Okay. Okay. Can you talk more about it?
Well, I mean, I think the kind of the culture and the mentality and these sort of things is really important. And so I always talk about trying to bring oxygen to things. So I know at least several of them would say oxygen.
And that's a great way to put it. First job you ever had.
Bagging groceries in a grocery store. 14 years old, probably or so, and bagging groceries.
Interesting. A book or podcast that inspired you recently.
Wasn't recently, but probably one of the favorite ones I like to talk about is Lone Survivor. So it's a Navy SEAL written by the Navy SEAL when they had one of the greatest losses of life in Navy SEAL history. So it's just a fantastic story, and there's a lot of things in there around mentality and leadership, serving others around you, bigger purposes, all those kind of things. So it's the number one book I mention when someone asks me that question.
I will read that book because I like to read books, so I will add to my list. Early bird or night owl?
Both. So I like to have fun. I like to be up late and hanging out with friends and doing all that kind of stuff. But then from the work side, it starts very early. Since we live here in Houston and you run a global business, the phone calls start at 5:30 in the morning.
Long
Most
days.
days a week.
Long days. I can imagine. Like with the different time zones.
Time zones, yeah.
One habit that's been a game changer for your career.
I would say optimism. I'm always a glass half full. So trying to figure out the positives in any situation, hold on to those, the things I can't control, I let go of. And so I think being pragmatically optimistic, I think is a good thing of always trying to find the good in people and situations and challenges and anything is find the positives.
I think so, and also the positivity manifests itself.
For
You know,
sure. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so that's great. Biggest myth about leadership.
Cool. That it's easy. Uh, no, I don't know the biggest myth. I mean, I think some people would say that it's telling people what to do. And I don't think that at all. I think it's showing and facilitating an environment where they figure out their path to it.
Understood.
There's no straight line to leading people, and everyone's going to do it differently. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong.
So it means more empowerment
For
to the
sure.
team.
I'm a very big believer on defining success, defining how we're measuring it, empowering and holding accountable.
That makes sense. One thing you do daily to stay grounded.
Exercise. So I try and exercise a lot. It allows my brain kind of a relief to dump out anything going on and start over a little bit. And then when I'm in Houston, it's time with my kids. I think COVID for me was life changing in a positive way, that I came off the road for 2 years and I had the opportunity to really form a bond with my children that, hopefully will never be broken.
That's really good. Favorite way to celebrate your win?
With the team. So anything, whatever that looks like, whether that's just out to dinner, whether it's to have a drink, whether it's to do some sort of team building activity, whatever it is, we play the ultimate team sport in ABB, and no one can invent it, sell it, service it, build it, engineer it, invoice it, whatever. We play the ultimate team sport, and so I think recognizing the team and shining the light on others, most rewarding part of my job.
I think so. It is also important because in every win, there's so many people are involved. Sometimes they are not visible, so it's
Yeah.
good to give credit to them as
Yeah.
well.
It's how you supply oxygen.
Yes,
So back to my
I
earlier
think I
point.
think that that's good thing I've learned about this oxygen, like as a part of a leadership style. I've heard many other things, but I will keep in mind oxygen next time. Let me talk about losses. How do you handle big loss?
Yeah, look, you have to learn from it. You have to take your time to process it, and whether that's on the personal side or professional side. I mean, I've gone through a lot of different challenges, whether it's direct family, indirect family, friends, colleagues, etc., or whether it's losing an order, losing a contract, losing a customer, all these kind of things. And I think first thing you have to do is accept it, process it, learn from it, and move along, because you can't change what happened a minute ago. It does
You
you
cannot
no good to let it sit in your head.
that you cannot stuck in the past. Let's focus on future. On
Yeah.
that's more important.
Yep.
Last not the least, I have to ask this question because it's an energy show. So one word to describe the future of energy.
I was just asked this at CERAWeek, and I think my answer was flexible. And yeah, flexible, because I think it's going to be really important that we have all these different energy sources, so that we have the ability to navigate the climate, the energy expansion, the needs of people to develop. And so we've got to have an energy landscape that can adapt or is flexible.
And that's great. So with that, you have passed with the flying colors. I could say that.
I don't know about that, but we completed the time, I guess.
No, no, I think it went really, really good. That also brings us to the last part of our discussion today. I have two quick things to know from you. We have discussed many things about the age bias to making yourself uncomfortable, networking and mentoring, like you also mentioned about it. But if you have to summarize everything in I will say one or two sentence for somebody who is looking to make it big, it like you, what that would be.
So I use this every single time. There's an acronym called PIE, PIE, which is performance, image, and exposure. You have to perform. You have to deliver results. Your image is, what do you want people to think of when they say your name? So if someone says Anand, what's the image? What pops into
Yes.
your head? You control that. And then exposure is, get out of your comfort zone, raise your hand, serve others, be in the community, take on additional assignments. All those things are critically important for you to progress your career.
That makes sense. And last not the least, we already hit some of the biases that might exist in the industry. But if you have to hit one bias, what that would be and how can we overcome that bias?
I think maybe for this podcast and for this your audience and things, I'm going to say the age bias. Give people a chance, whether they're older, whether they're younger. People want to have a purpose. They want to contribute to something bigger than themselves. And I think it's not about how many years of experience you have, positive or negative. It's about what's the runway of that person.
That makes sense. And what is he or she going to contribute? So focus more on what they can contribute now than what they have done in the past.
That's right.
No,
That's right.
that's great. So thank you so much for your time. I think a lot to learn, and I think our listeners will get a lot of value out of this. But before I sign off, Brandon, anything to say?
Hey, thanks for having a fellow ABBer on. And I think it's great that as an employee, you're also doing this to try and expand kind of the footprint of our brand, but also step out of your own comfort zone. And so appreciate you having me on and getting a chance to talk a little bit about some of the softer topics that I think are really important for anyone out there trying to navigate their own career.
So with that, thank you so much, Brandon. I will sign off for now. Keep listening. Oil and Gas Breaking By Show. Stay tuned. See you next week. Have a great day.